back in New Orleans is good in some ways, it's hard in some ways. It feels like we were here 2 weeks ago. Time is moving very slowly here. It's moving very slowly. The Ninth Ward is still devastated. It's still abandoned. There's virtually nobody there. Many of the houses that we saw last time have been razed, so there are still crushed and abandoned houses there, but there are many houses that are just gone. It is very desolate down there. There's one church there that has a quote from Ezekiel on the front about, "Can these bones live?" And that was a sign that we really took to heart last time we were down here. This time we were here, the sign's still up. The church, I don't remember being able to go into it last time, and this time it had been gutted and we went in, and it was a striking experience. There's a painting in one corner that was either brought in or left of Jesus being baptized, and there is hanging in the doorway a pendant with a cross hanging on it, and then a memorial outside to all those that had died in that area. So it's really become a sign, I think, for that area of the devastation, but also of the faith that still resides there.
St. Luke's Episcopal Church in New Orleans is a predominantly African-American church. I think all but one parishioner at that church experienced damage from the hurricanes. Their homes were flooded or damaged in some way from the hurricane. So, and they, at this point, don't have a priest, any clergy.
So when the hurricane came about, I was really concerned about what had happened to St. Luke's, what condition it was in, where the people were. And we started having meetings together, developing relationships, building trust, and from there, it really started off with a partnership of All Saints and Messiah. It's really turned into a tremendous ministry, one that I could never really imagine, or never imagined would exist, and it has been a very powerful expression of how Christ, really lives out in our lives in terms of our mission and our ministry.
We've got folks from all different backgrounds. We've got 5 parishes involved in the trip, 4 from the Chicago area: Messiah, St. Bartholomew, All Saints, Christ Church, Winnetka, Church of the Atonement, and we have a wonderful group of Brits from St. Matthew's, Westminster in London.
I think focusing on common mission is going to be one of the most important things that will heal the church and ultimately hold us together.
In England we live, where I live especially in Westminster, with a lot of discussion about the Anglican Communion and with the problems of our church. And here you see the church in action. And this is actually putting all the discussion in the Anglican Communion into context. This is where the church should be and where the church is doing what it's called to be, showing the love of God in action.
I wanted to come to New Orleans because I used to live here. I consider it my town. It was in trouble. I wasn't. I wanted to help it. So I did.
You know, every time there's a disaster of some kind, and I think I really would like to do something to help, I just don't quite make it. And so this time I thought, I'd like to do something like that. And then I thought, I can. I want to and I will. There's no reason why I can't.
Just putting a human face down here makes a difference. Just having these folks actually see us, showing that we care, showing that they haven't been forgotten, showing that we're willing to help get them back on their feet is worth something.
And realizing even the little bit we do, it matters. That may sound trivial, but it's not. That's just it. When you're trying to put your life back together, crumb by crumb, bit by bit, piece by piece, coming down and painting matters. And I think each and every one of us needs to know that we matter.
Last night we had briefings from a couple different people who seem to really be devoting their lives to this recovery effort. They kind of gave us a background of New Orleans and the culture down here, and frankly, a little bit of why this is so important to save what's here. I mean, it's a very, very unique culture in this city. And I guess I kind of knew that, but talking a little bit about it, looking at the map of the city, kind of seeing exactly where the devastation happened, talking a little bit about the birthplace of jazz, it all just made it seem even more worthwhile.
What we're really doing when we gut someone's house is we're conducting a funeral for their old life. It's really not until that's taken care of that people can begin to move on to heal and to think about the future and how they're going to rebuild their lives. So although there's a practical dimension to this, and there's a kind of a huge sort of economic gift that you're giving a family who can't really afford to hire people to come in and gut their home. It's more than that. It's much more than that. You're actually accompanying them through this very wrenching process of reclaiming, sort of facing the loss and beginning to feel that there's something beyond that loss.
I want you also to know that it is not the Southern way of hospitality to tell you to pick up the key, open the door, let yourself in, cook your own meal, sleep on the floor, whatever y'all. That's not the way we do it in the South. But we are overwhelmed and we are exhausted and we are doing all we can already. So we can't do much for you now. But we invite you to come back to us when we're whole again so we can show you our gracious city in all of its splendor. We can eat some good food together. We can listen to the music that courses through our streets night and day. We are going to love this city back to life because we would all know what it means to miss New Orleans.
We rented vans, and each group is in a different van. And we are the dancing van, and we've spent a lot of time singing and dancing on our way to the sites. And I think part of that is for us to have a release and to have fun and relax. And then as we get closer to the site, we become much more quiet. And I think that also helps us get ready for what's to come.
I figured we'd be taking bats or something and knock out walls. And surveying a house and looking at the complexity of that house and how you were going to get it apart seemed pretty daunting at the beginning.
Our group actually did almost the three stages of gutting. First, we cleared out the house, the one house the first day, but we didn't get into gutting. The second day, we gutted a house that had already been cleaned out, and the third day, we painted a house that had already been gutted.
The first house that I was in, I thought we were going to be, gutting houses, and there's still stuff in it. Nothing had been taken out, and it was a building that was 2 stories high and in a place where the water had been up to the roof line.
Everything that they owned was still, where it was after the hurricane had hit, and so I think that really took everybody by surprise. So we removed belongings for a full day and didn't even finish.
Basically, I kept taking wheelbarrows full of refuse and taking them out to the curb and emptying them again and again and again. And used a shovel to shovel the contents into the wheelbarrow and take it out to the wheelbarrow. We did the kitchen. I have never seen cockroaches as big. The cockroaches were absolutely huge. Smell was awful. But the worst part was seeing people's lives. I mean, I just can't imagine seeing all my stuff.
And there were the contents of the drawers, and the contents of the bathroom drawers, and their novels that had fallen off the bookshelf, which was too warped to hold them anymore, and just we were sorting through people's shoes and underwear, and then Blistex and toothbrushes, and you'd lift things up, and a gigantic cockroach would scuttle out, and then under the pile of the clothes would be a dead mouse, and it's just like, this was somebody's bedroom.
You clean up a whole lot of debris, and you basically just leave the frame of the house when you're done. So basically you just
take all the stuff that was damaged out of it. You separate it into electronics, chemicals, and basic trash. You basically pull the ceiling down and the drywall off the frame, and so that's basically it right there. So it's just completely empty, just concrete and wood, just the frame of the house when you're done.
And it was gratifying because I was in a group with fun people and we were all in the same boat and we were working together, and it wasn't my house. So there was one removed, and it was a process that I felt was getting somewhere. Because I know once that house is gutted, it's not going to be torn down. Hopefully that family's going to be able to go to the next step and get back in it within the foreseeable future.
Well, let's see, I ripped up a deck. I cleaned out a little boy's closet, ripped off some trim, cleaned out a lot of food from the kitchen. And when the cockroaches started flying, I took a break.
Some things have changed. From the last time we were here, there were huge piles of garbage everywhere that just sat and sat and sat and sat. And now those piles of garbage are gone very quickly.
But then to actually see the shell at the end, and you know, for me, when I came back into a house that was fully gutted, for one we did the first day, I just thought actually, you know, this house is it's pregnant with possibility in the sense that, you know, you could reimagine what life would be like here.
I love New Orleans. I love this city. I love the people that live here. I love the food. I've loved a lot in this city, and to come with a group of people is really helpful, because on the one hand, I'm very proud of my city, and right now I'm just very sad for it. So with a group of people who are here intentionally to help rebuild it is quite a gift.
There were bishops in town for a series of meetings. Some of them, I think, had actually gone out and done some gutting. And the Bishop of Louisiana was having an event to mark that occasion, bringing people together. My initial feeling was that this was just another thing that was keeping me from what I was doing in New Orleans. But the food was good, and I met a wonderful woman bishop from Maine who I think is going to be involved in organizing a trip down to Louisiana. So that was fun.
It's very impressive to meet some of the bishops this morning who are working here doing exactly what we're doing. 7 bishops of your church coming to gut houses. For me, that puts the whole thing where it should be, in service to the world. So I think this is a great lesson in seeing what the church can become. Actually, if we put our differences aside and respect the differences, but actually say we have common cause and common mission.
Eating raw oysters at Cooter Brown's, hands down the highlight of the trip. Absolutely stunning that you can get, that I could buy 12 crisp, clear, clean, taste the sea oysters. 12 of them for $8 plus a $2 tip. It's fabulous. And after we ate the 12, it was very clear to us that it would have been a sin not to have gone back and bought 12 more. So we did.
It was funny yesterday, the homeowner said that he's starting to get his sense of humor back about this. And I think in devastation, that's one place you can go. You know what I mean? Is that he realizes how awful it is. But now humor may be able to help him lighten the load so he can come out of it. You know, he said he'd been really depressed. He said he'd been really just, you know, kind of spiraling downward. And I think that now maybe he's realizing that laughter is one way that we can all keep going.
Yesterday we worked on a member from St. Luke's. That's the parish that we're partnered with down here. This is a woman in her 70s. They were all evacuated, she and her 5 children and their you know, her grandchildren and great-grandchildren to Atlanta. And she basically said it would be nice. My mom's coming back December 20th to make her road home application, go to the doctor. It would be nice if her kitchen could be in order, if her dishes could be washed, if the linoleum and carpet in the bedroom could be removed so the room would look clean.
There was so much emphasis on how good God is on her walls, and when she talked to us on the phone, how good God is and Jesus will take care of me. And I kept thinking, look around, lady. I mean, how good has he been? But it was still there. On the phone, she was saying, God is so, I'm so lucky, God is so good to me. And I thought, if she can think that, anybody can think that.
This is actually one of the first projects that we're doing that seems to involve quite a bit of, quite a finished house. And, you know, it's really looking like a house again. She's got all brand new drywall inside. It looks as if it's wired also, but what we're doing is priming the new wallboard, top to bottom. And you can really see a lot of hope in the homeowner's eyes. She's just beaming. Every little drop of paint that goes on the wall and everything done, and the closer she gets to moving back in, you could just see how happy she's, you know, she's getting excited because the one thing I noticed she said to us, which really was nice, she said, I don't care what color y'all paint it, I just want to get my bed in here. So she's just really excited to be at this stage and back in her house with it, you know, resembles a house again.
They were just so sweet and so happy for us being there. And it was nice to do reconstruction rather than destruction, and to see someone that in a couple months would actually move back into their house.
It would be so easy, I think, for big-time contractors or developers to just come in and plow down all the homes without giving homeowners an opportunity to make the decision for themselves, or, you know, do the row house and get the funds and rebuild if they want to. And I think that is a way New Orleans could take. I think they could buy the land off people, completely come in and bulldoze and start anew that way. But I think us being down here gives people hope that there's other people in the country that still care about them and want to help them rebuild the way they want to, give them the opportunity to take step forwards on their own, you know, enable them really to make that next step, no matter what it is.
People that we have talked to, they seem to be just grateful that we're here, and they keep saying, you know, we're just so tired. We're just so tired, and we're so glad that you're here because we're just tired. And it's like they're besieged.
After all our work on the first 3 days, we went on Saturday to the convention center in New Orleans. And we got these fun yellow t-shirts, and we all went out and we worked the convention floor.
Some people came back and it was their first time in the city for 15 months. They traveled in several hours, some of them, to be there. A few had never been evacuated. They were part of the 10% who'd stayed here. But the majority were beginning to trickle back in. They were in trailers. A few were getting back into their homes. And then there was a link with 5 other cities that have been major places of dispersion. And it was linked by satellite, so that in real time, everybody was joining together to make their voice heard about their vision for transformation for the city.
I was surprised sometimes about how people I didn't know would just open up to us and share their frustration. We spent a lot of time this morning with 3 folks talking outside the meeting because they felt discouraged. And we were out there for about 30-40 minutes just listening to them tell their stories.
First they had an address, and Ray Nagin came up and said, "This is a good thing." And he went away for 3 hours and then came back at the end. And then they had a little address where they discussed what was going on in New Orleans right now, and then they went through a few plans like community planning, like where the major hospitals should be rebuilt, where the major fire stations should be rebuilt.
There was something that I can only call grace. People who've been deeply traumatized. Some of them had lost family members, several of them had lost homes, some had had very, very little damage. And yet they were prepared to come there, talk about the past, face the future, and be very clear about what they wanted. I was taken aback but not surprised by the level of anger that after 15 months, some of them were still seeing no change, no action, and a lot of anger at different levels of people within the power to why was this not happening?
If I wouldn't have seen just this little bit more, this where we're rebuilding a little bit, I would have still had that impression of destruction and, you know, all that, which was, you know, so prevalent in my mind. But now to see this little bit of progress toward the growth, it makes me feel real hopeful and real glad that I came.
We're staying at St. Augustine's, and it's really fun. It's sort of dorm-like in one big area, mattresses on the floor, one tent set up outside that room.
You gotta figure, you gotta have at least 2 or 3 snorers in the group. This is just gonna happen. That's just statistically how it plays out. And I've known from the past that I may be a snorer and I'm not sure, and I can't claim it one way or the other, but what I do know is that I cannot sleep when there's any noise. I'm delicate that way. And so what I knew I needed to do is I needed to bring my kayaking tent with me. I have a very small tent, fits in the back of my kayak. I knew I needed to bring it with me, and I was just elated when I saw the balcony out here, and I thought, that's where I can put my tent. I will be not too far from the group, but separated from any random night noise that might be around. And it worked really, really well until the front came through. Torrential downpour came. My tent was fine, but okay, it was getting blown over. And so I decided I just moved the whole tent, picked it up, carried it into the parish hall, and so now I slept. Last night was the best night I had here in the parish hall. It's lovely.
I did a little survey before we went down to find out what people really hated and if they had any suggestions, and found out that the most hated food was liver. Now, I hadn't really been planning on cooking liver, but in fact I did find that out. And we basically worked out a system where we got a variety of cereals and breads and fruit for breakfast, and then people could have toast or different kinds of cereal and fruit. And then we got lots of different kinds of sandwich things, plus desserts and fruit and chips, and people packed their own lunches, so we set out stations in the morning. And then, based on people's responses to the survey, I recruited several people to cook.
Okay, so 30 people have to take showers in 1 hour. How's that going to work? It was fine.
It was a lot easier than I thought, though. I mean, I really enjoyed that part of it, getting to know people that closely. That was really a special part of the trip.
And we're staying in, I think, makeshift rooms. I think they're offices or something, or classrooms, I'm not sure, but that's fine. I mean, it's kind of 8 of us in a room that's normally used by the choir, I think, or something. So, you know, we do a bit of singing, a bit of talking on the piano.
Not surprising, it's been a great group of people. Everyone has a pretty good sense of humor and is willing to go with the flow. So it's always great to meet new people and develop new relationships.
Well, I'm reading a book about a woman who was in New York after 9/11 and how the city was trying to pull together and all the good ideas and bad ideas that were coming. She was a civil servant and she was fielding a lot of phone calls, and it just seems like people really cared about getting the World Trade Centers remembered and to get something rebuilt and to move on, and everybody was coming up with crazy ideas and good ideas and bad ideas. And I'm feeling like New Orleans hasn't gotten to that stage yet, that they're still just in shock.
But yeah, I mean, I find that really interesting in terms of the capacity for people to live with these things or to not live with that, and how people move on, how people deal with those kind of things.
Where's God? Everywhere and nowhere. I mean, everywhere, because you could say, oh, we had a great time, we met so many people, we made a difference in their lives, that was fabulous, and I feel better, and they feel better, and hey, isn't this great? In the midst of this disaster, this is the connections we've made. So that's God, that's everywhere. And then nowhere, because you know what? There's still a house that's in the middle of the street. So where's God? Coming and going.
This is a place where we can come together, do some work, and then if the opportunity presents itself, deal with the sacred questions of life. Life, death, rebirth. I mean, that's Christians, that's what we proclaim. And here, I mean, here we see it.
And actually thought our last service at St. Luke's was one of the real high points for me. When we redid the Lord's Prayer at the end and everyone from the congregation and our group was holding hands, I felt like that was a really powerful moment and was a little surprised at that for myself.
I just got this sense from everyone around there that they were so grateful for us being there. And I was grateful being there too. Just after seeing all this devastation in all these neighborhoods, and then I walked into this church and it was just gorgeous, and the service, everything was just beautiful and pristine, and everyone had a big smile on their face, and it was just a really joyous ending to the trip.